This is an article of mine that was printed on the subject of the world before the flood. The antediluvian world was paradisical beyond our ken. There was perpetual spring weather all over the globe. Luxuriant tropical fauna grew at the poles, and even the Arabian and Saharan deserts were covered with verdant forests. Wheat grew as tall as trees, with kernels the sizes of fists. Men enjoyed optimum health, a lifespan of centuries, tremendous fecundity, vast intelligence, and freedom from all vexations. Diseases did not exist. Death occurring with a sudden, painless sneeze. Men would sneeze and they would drop dead. It was not until Yaakov Avinu, hundreds of years later, that men started to experience suffering before death. Gemara Bava Metzia 87. Population statistics show that starting from 8 individuals, the survivors of the flood, to the present world population of 8 billion is a perfect exponential growth curve over 4,000 years. This is greatly perplexing for evolutionists who maintain that men have been around for at least 2 million years and that by now the world population should be very much greater, in the order of trillions. Population formulae show that it is quite possible that the number of people in the world before the flood was greater than the world population of today. The first men were of great height and titanic physique. Some of the Nephilim, Anakim, and Bnei Elokim referred to in the Torah literally had some angelic yichus, angelic ancestry, with skeletal structures of tremendous size, says the Zohar. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, who himself was 10 amos tall, 10 cubits, that is 15 feet, was hard put in dispatching Sichon and Og, who were the last and least of the antediluvian giants. The victory over these two brothers, Sichon and Og, was considered more miraculous than the victory over the Egyptians. When the Emperor Hadrian boasted of his victories, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai humbled him by showing him the corpses of the original Amorite inhabitants of Jerusalem, each of which was 18 cubits long. Kachagovim v'chein hayinu beineihem. We were as grasshoppers in their sight. Bamidbar 13. The phenomena of gigantism can be explained by the very far-reaching physiological effects of the much higher speed of light which prevailed in the past. More efficient breathing, diffusion, blood flow and ion transfer, faster nerve impulses, electron movements, fecundity and growth, lower fluid viscosities, etc. But today, limitations on the blood pressure to volume ratio and bone strength precludes the existence of men taller than 10 feet tall. In Messianic times to come, man's original wondrous height will be restored, says the Sifra. Nefesh sovea tovus nofes. A glutted soul will spurn even the honeycomb, Mishlei 27. And the end result of the misuse of such antediluvian leisure and divine munificence was an epidemic of rapine, immorality, and robbery. V'chol yetsa machshavos libo rak ra kol hayom. As the Torah relates, every inclination of man's heart at that time was only for continual evil, kol hayom, all day evil. In the final week before the Mabul, before the flood, during the Shiva for the Tzaddik Methuselah, the sun actually reversed its real diurnal orbit about the earth, and it rose in the west, says Sanhedrin 108. The sun rose in the west, not in the east, a phenomenon only comprehensible geocentrically. And as a final payoff, these evil men were permitted to experience delights approaching those of Olam Haba, approaching the pleasures of the afterlife. Va'arubos hashamayim niftochu, the windows of heaven were opened. There is currently less than 2 inches worth of precipitation in the entire atmosphere at any one time, and to provide for 40 days and nights of non-stop global rain, it is postulated that the Earth was originally surrounded by a huge gaseous transparent water vapor canopy, the WVC, Hamayim Asher Ma'al Rakia, the waters that are above the firmament, Genesis 1. This water canopy blocked the life-shortening cosmic radiation from reaching the Earth's surface and dispersed the sun's heat uniformly, preventing high winds. Rain fell only once every 40 years, and some opinions hold that rainbows had never been seen before. Ve'eid yale min ha'oretz ve'hishka eskol pnei ha'adama. Watering of the ground was by mists and streams arising from the earth. Bereshis 2. When this WVC, water vapor canopy, collapsed, it suddenly condensed and fell to the grounds in violently destructive torrents. Mighty tsunamis, tidal waves, hundreds of feet tall, repeatedly circled the globe at hundreds of miles per hour, pulverizing everything in their path. Tahom el tahom kore lo kol sinorecha, kol mishparecha v'galecha alai avaru. Deep calls unto deep at the roar of your water channels. All your breakers and your waves have swept over me. Tehillim 42. Nivku kol mayanos tahom rabba. All the fountains of the mighty deep were split open. This event was ridiculed by geologists until the deepest borehole to date, the Soviet Arctic Kola well, confirmed in 1987 the truth of the Torah's reference to the Mayonos Tahom Rabbah. To the miners' amazement, the drill head, down at a depth of 10 miles, drove into huge caverns filled with searingly hot water, which had been previously thought impossible at such a depth. Even this depth is only a pinprick towards the Earth's center, 4,000 miles equidistant from all of us. There may be more surprising awaiting in the Earth's interior, as a cavernous, hollow Earth could well be in accord with Chazal. Indeed, more is known about the far side of Pluto than what transpires a few miles under our feet. The corrosive scalding waters from inside the earth literally dissolve their bodies, even down to the normally indestructible resurrection bone in the spine known as the luz. The generation of the flood will not participate in the resurrection of the dead, Sanhedrin 108. A merciful numbing torpor was cast on them as they expired, but a painless death is no kapara, and it afforded them no opportunity to repent, to perform tshuva. Their corpses were all washed down to the Babylonian plain in Iraq, hence the expression, Kol ha'ochel ma'afra shel baval ke'ilu ochel basa avosav. Whoever eats from the soil of Babylon, it is as though he had eaten of his own ancestors. Zvochim 113. In the Kabbalah, the 40 days of rain are compared to the 40 sa'as of a mikveh, i.e., an impure world was literally toiveled to purity. Because mankind had corrupted its way upon the earth, preventing the union of the upper and lower supernal waters, the Mayim Duchrin and the Mayim Nukvin, so was it punished by a union of the upper and lower physical waters. Because they said to God, Sur mimenu v'das drachecha lo chafatznu. You, God, depart from us. We desire not knowledge of your ways. Eov 21. And they insulted the honor of the divine name, Yudke, Gematria 15. So, midah keneged midah, tit for tat, they were drowned in water that rose 15 cubits above even the highest mountain peaks. All mountain ranges, the Caucasus, Urals, Rockies, Atlas, Appalachians, Andes, Alps, Himalayas, etc., bear preserved water ripple marks and are bedecked with seashells, amphibian and whale bones, the remains of billions of specimens of entire shoals of fish, and thousands of huge fossil graveyards of camels, bisons, bears, wolverines, antelopes, coyotes, saber-toothed tigers, rhinoceri, jaguars, mammoths, reindeer, hippopotamuses, boars, and other exotic animals, all jumbled together and preserved in positions of fear and contortion, indicative of a sudden violent death. Fossilization does not occur today, and the very existence of perfectly formed fossils implies swift mineralization before the carcasses had time to decay, which can only be explained by catastrophic diluvial action and immediate burial under sediment. Yet the testimony of the fossil record, which is the greatest disproof of the theory of evolution, is deliberately misinterpreted to concoct the hoax of the so-called geological column, which exists nowhere on Earth. Yofiach kezovim eid sheker, a false witness spouts lies. Mishlei 6. The bubble completely washed away the precious original 3 tefachim, 3 handbreadths of the super fertile topsoil, carrying it away to the ocean floor. Since that era, biological, genetic, and physiological forces have been in a continual and relentless decline, which will not be restored until the Messianic era. The fossil record shows that mosses, which once grew 3 feet tall, now reach only 1 inch. Dragonflies were once 40 inches long, now only 4 inches. Cockroaches reached a length of 12 inches, now 1 inch. Shellfish 5 feet across, now 8 inches. Crocodiles once reached 50 feet in length, today a paltry 12 feet. Turtles 10 feet long, etc. Many species were wiped out. The dinosaurs, those fantastic creatures of land, sea, and air, such as the 100-foot-long lumbering Diplodocus, the frightening underwater Kronosaurus, and even modern whales reach 100 feet and can weigh up to 120 tons. And the flying pterodactyls, compare this to the reference to flying serpents in Yeshaya 14 and 13, and the flying giant bird, the Ziz of the Midrash, with their 50-foot wingspans equal to a tornado jet. Contrary to the erroneous views of the long-age uniformitarians, dinosaurs lived contemporaneously with man, as shown by the ancient worldwide traditions, carvings, statues, and paintings that abound of giant dragons, monstrous sea serpents, and gargantuan winged reptiles. The discovery in the USA and Russia of petrified 16-inch human footprints right next to dinosaur tracks cuts the evolutionary timetable to shreds. For example, the famous Paluxy River tracks in Texas. The description of the Behemoth and Leviosan, the Behemoth and Leviathan, in Eov chapters 40 and 41, is remarkably dinosaurian. Quote, "Behold now Behemoth which I created with you. He eats grass like an ox. He moves his tail like a cedar. His bones are like bars of iron. He drinks up a river. He can draw up the Yarden, the river Jordan, into his mouth. The Leviathan, his teeth are awesome. The scales of his flesh cannot be sundered. Flames shoot from his mouth and smoke from his nostrils. He laughs at the arrow and spear. Iron is like straw and brass like rotten wood before him. He causes the sea to boil." Unquote. Similarly, the Talmud's description of the Nachash, the serpent in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, i.e. a tall, bipedal, upright walking, Hebrew talking, reptilian type creature. Had it not been cursed, its descendants would have been very valuable assistants to mankind. As the Talmud laments, Chaval al Shamash Gadol Sha'ovad Mina Olam. Woe for the loss of that great servant, the Nachash. Sanhedrin 59. Rav Eli Munk posits that the Bnei Adnak, referred to in the Torah, were actually dinosaurian in nature. Compare the webbed hands and numerous rows of teeth ascribed to these Zamzumim. After the flood, the sun's real annual path about the earth, the ecliptic, became canted to an angle of 23.5 degrees away from the equator. The sun now started to constantly hunt back and forth between the solstices, resulting in the advent of the health-sapping change of seasons which we experience. V'zorach hashemesh uvo hashemesh ve'el makomo shoef, zoreach hu sham, v'holech el darom v'sovev el safon. The sun rises and the sun sets, and hastens to its place and rises there. It walks to the south and it walks to the north, Koheles 1. With the loss of the dissipatory effect of the WVC, the water vapor canopy, global weather conditions were no longer felicitous, and snow fell for the first time, entombing the once lush polar regions in permafrost, with the lesser catastrophes of glaciation, volcanism, and desiccation ensuing. Until the generation of Enosh, the Earth's topography had been flat and level, like Holland. Where is Gerard? Completely free of mountains. Now it was totally reshaped, and following the splitting of the original single landmass into the 7 continents during the generation of Peleg, plus the lesser but still worldwide convulsions that occurred at the time of the giving of the Torah, and the huge global earthquake that occurred during the reign of King Uzziah, the cartography of the globe today is now unrecognizable from the original. Notice the jigsaw fit of the continental shelves of South America with Africa, Antarctica, and Australasia. Thus, it is futile to try to attempt the location of the terrestrial Garden of Eden from the description of the 4 rivers emanating from it, as their courses have been dramatically rerouted, some even having gone subterranean. For example, the huge underground Jura River that flows from France to Ireland 3,000 feet below the Earth's surface. Consternation was caused amongst the savants when it was discovered that the Niagara Falls waterway has been flowing for only 2,400 years. Opinions as to Eden's whereabouts vary widely, from somewhere on the equator, to Africa, to deep inside Asia, to Russia, to Syria, and even nearby Lebanon. Future global re-landscaping is to be expected in the future. Quote, a great earthquake will come upon the land. All men on the face of the earth will shake at my presence. Mountains will be overthrown, cliffs will topple, every wall will collapse. I will pour fire on Magog and on those who dwell securely in the isles. Ezekiel chapter 38. As well as dramatic new river formations at the time of the coming third temple. Ibid chapter 47. Even on the most minimalistic definition of a cubit, the ark was at least 450 by 75 by 45 feet, a volume of 1.5 million cubic feet, displacing 20,000 tons, and more than enough to contain a representative pair of each species. It was built of unitary length 300 cubit long beams from trees which had grown to precisely the required size. The oldest living things today, the 4,500-year-old California pines, exceed 400 feet in length. As with the Mishkan, the ark's dimensions are not arbitrary, but relate Kabbalistically to fundamental aspects of the metaphysical structure and dynamics of the universe. Quote, all measurements in the Torah are reflections of Ruchani aspects of creation. Rav Chaim Zimmerman. Naval architects rediscovered that these are the optimum dimensions for riding storm waves and maximum stability, and made the ark completely uncapsizable. The USS Oregon was built to exactly the ark's ratios and is considered to have been the most seaworthy ship ever built. The worldwide traditions of the flood, although corrupted, all have a common thread. They all state, quote, there was once a golden age. Men were twice as tall as us. They saw all. They knew all. They were not virtuous. 8 were saved, and they lived in a boat for a year. Noach is known as Nua in the Chinese tradition, Nu'u in the Hawaiian, Na'a in the Babylonian, No'o in the Hottentot, and Nota in the Aztec. Yeah, Hottentot. The pyramids of Egypt were built with incredible speed. Their method of construction is still a mystery. The pyramid of Cheops is composed of 2.5 million blocks, some weighing up to 200 tons, yet laid with such precision of astronomical alignment and exactitude of construction that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. Maybe the Egyptians had access to the stone-slicing shamir worm, or even built by sorcery and levitation, of which they were masters. As the Talmud states, 10 degrees of kishuf, magic, descended to the world, and Egypt took 9 of them, Kiddushin 49. Similarly, the ziggurats of Babylon and Mexico, the 90-ton stone men of Easter Island, the stupefying temple at Baalbek in nearby Lebanon, how its 2,000-ton blocks were moved and raised is completely beyond the comprehension of modern engineers. The fantastic structures of Lake Titicaca, the enigmatic lines of Nazca Valley, and many other perplexing megalithic structures. Even modern lifting gear can barely budge, let alone lift, the gravity-defying sarcens of Stonehenge. In those days, men could circumambulate the globe in a short time, says the Midrash. The sagacious Kadmonim had access to skills which have been lost and to which we have not yet reattained. The great stores of knowledge of pre-flood and pre-Bavel wisdom were kept in the huge depositories of the ancient world, in the great libraries of Memphis, Carthage, Alexandria, Constantinople, and Yucatan. All were wantonly put to the torch by the Romans, the Vandals, the Spaniards, and the Mohammedans, a loss that cannot be calculated. In 640 CE, the Caliph Omar used the millions of priceless manuscripts of the Library of Alexandria to fuel the city's baths. For 6 months the fires roared, fueled by the knowledge of the ancients. If only a fraction of these incunabuli had been saved, all the piled high or hoary errors and prevarications of the anti-Torah and hostile atheistic historians like Dio Cassius, Herodotus, Thucydides, Hellanicus, Appian, Voltaire, Gretz, Weiss, Wellhausen, Spengler, Russell, Toynbee and Taylor would be demolished, and the missing pages of history would be known. History would have to be rewritten and geological time revised in accordance with our Torah's emes. Beneath our feet lie the fossils of millions of extinct animals and men. They are a silent witness to a time when mankind became so depraved that finally it was virtually wiped out in one great cataclysm of water. Fearful though this thought may be, we can take some comfort that we have been promised that this will never happen again. Next time it will be by fire, a mabul shel eish. As it says in Tzfanya 3, Ki ba'esh kinesi te'achel kol ha'oretz. All the earth will be devoured by the fire of my zeal.